At GOLFTEC, we've measured hundreds of thousands of swings, and we know what it takes to play better golf. If you struggle with a slice, don't worry, you're not alone. Let's take a look at the backswing of a tour player that draws the ball, compare that to a slicer, and see what we can learn and how you can fix your swing. Now you'll notice in the backswing, the tour player's hands start moving inward from where they were at address, and they're really close to this bottom line. Part of how he does that is by closing his shoulders 53 degrees at this point in his backswing. Compare that to a slicer, you'll see his hands have moved back much straighter, they're closer to this upper line, and he's only closing his shoulders 35 degrees. Now this is going to be the start of his slicing problem. We're going to play him a little farther back, and you're going to notice the tour player, his hands are going to continue moving more and more inward to the point where they're about even with the middle of his trail bicep at this point. He's also continued to close his shoulders all the way to 85 degrees at this point. It's almost a full shoulder turn pretty early in his backswing still. Comparing that again to the slicer, you're going to see his hands are more in line with his neck. He's only closing his shoulders 62 degrees. If you slice the ball, this is just a really hard position to swing from. Cool thing is we can go out in the hitting area, we're going to do a drill, and it's going to help take care of this problem. All right, so now we have our motion measurement on, and let's talk about how we're going to fix your slice. Now, if you're like the slicer we saw in the video, and you're intentionally taking your hands back really straight in your backswing, restricting your hip turn, all that's doing is making your slice worse. Now, there's two things we can do in your backswing to help that out. First thing, as you begin your backswing, start turning your hips as much as you can to the point where you're aiming your belt buckle away from the target. The more you turn your hips, the easier it's going to be to turn your shoulders. Now, the second part, as you're turning your hips, feel like you're taking the grip end of the club and moving that as close to your right pocket as you can. The more it works inward to begin with, that'll help to create the depth you need at the top of your backswing to get rid of your slice. Once you feel pretty comfortable, it's time to hit one out there, and it should look something like this. Now, this is definitely going to help you out with your slice, but to make sure that it does address your problems, what you need to do is go find your local GOLFTEC and get your swing measured.